Hi Global Leader, welcome to Joyride with Expatriates. In this show, we bring every month a different person to talk about their expatriation experiences, cultural challenges, and how to become an effective person while living abroad. Hi, I'm Tatyana Fittipaldi, and in this channel, we make videos to help global leaders just like you become more effective, more productive, and improve their leadership both in business and life. Today, we have the pleasure of chatting with an amazing global leader and cultural promoter. Wanny Angerer was born in Honduras. She is a singer, a cultural promoter, and a change coach. She is the founder and director of Wanny Angerer Moving Cultures. She has lived in the US, Austria, Colombia, Panama, India, Kenya, and Zimbabwe. Wanny is married, has a son, and currently lives in Thailand. Please join me in welcoming her to our show. Wanny, thank you so much for coming to our show. Thank you so much.
Hola, Tatyana. Nice to see you. I'm very happy.
Thank you so much for coming. So how about we start our show by you telling our audience, where did you come from? Which countries have you lived in? And what do you miss in those countries and what you don't miss in those countries?
Tati, thanks very much for the invitation. And I want to tell people around the globe that I am from Honduras, Central America. And since 1997, I have been traveling around the world with my family due to my husband's career and also from the perspective of my work, there is culture and connection with people from different cultures. I started my journey on communications when I was in my 70s. I was an exchange student to Rockford, Illinois, with AFS Intercultural Exchange Organization. And that was a great opportunity for me to understand that life is a little bit broader than what we usually take in consideration when we are in a family setting. You know, at the moment that you leave your community, your friends, and the things you know, is when things really start to make sense. Because everything you have learned through childhood, you can start to apply it in these new opportunities that you get traveling abroad. Do you want me to give you more specific details about who I am and where I come from, Tati?
Yes, sure. It's up to you. Let us know, how far do you want to go?
Okay. Well, I come from a community called Garifunas, and the Garifuna people is a Black community mixed with Red Indians. The whole story of the Garifuna people, where I come from, that is located on the coast of Honduras, Nicaragua, and Guatemala, started in the 1635 or 1670, when a boat of slaves coming from different areas of West, East, and Southern Africa sank in the coast of the Caribbean. So these slaves ended mixed with Red Indians and San Vincent. And they practically started a journey of their own. So the Garifuna people has Indians and African antecedents. So they have their own language, they have their own traditions, they are being protected by the UNESCO. They do not have a slavery background because they did not manage to go to those islands in the Caribbean that the traders were planning to. So what they did is that they joined the French community fighting against the buccaneers.
Oh.
Yeah, and they were like a resistance group, and during the fights, you could see the men dressing, because the island was mainly inhabited by women, because men from the island used to travel to other places because the small islands didn't have many products. So when these slaves came, that was the reason why they so easily emerged as a fusion culture, you know. And well, they were fighting with at the side of the French, winning some battles, losing some other battles. And in 1791, they lost. And the British say, okay, we don't want to have anything to do with the Garifuna, so let's send them to the coast of Honduras. And we arrived 224 years ago to Punta Gorda in Roatan in Honduras. The Spaniards knew about this new group of Afro-Caribbeans who were coming, and they say, would you like to stay on the coast of Latin America or Central America and then fight against the buccaneers once more? Because as you know, all the coasts of the Caribbean and Central America was actually under the vigilance of the British. Yeah. So the first Afro descendants who came to Honduras were slaves from the British. But then we came, the Garifunas, as in exile, embraced by the Spaniards to protect the country. You know, so that's the story, and this is why I think Garifunas till today are very much confident because they understand their origins, you know, and
the struggles, right?
And the struggle, and they have understood, you know, how to keep it alive.
Yeah.
You know, the population globally is not bigger than 10%, 20% in Honduras. And probably globally we are 200,000, no more than that.
Oh, yeah,
so it's
that's
very, very small. It's a very small.
That's small but powerful, right?
Yes, very present, very present.
Very present. That's
very present in the society, and people knows about their music, about their traditions, and we make a big effort to continue sharing this legacy, and also understanding that we are a combination of different kind of people. Yeah.
And what do you miss from there? So you talk about, you know, the history and the origins of your people with such a passion. So what do you miss about Honduras and your people?
Yeah, I think what I miss about Honduras is the sense of family that exists in the community. Honduran people is very loving, and besides the differences and besides the different misunderstandings that you can find through their communication and also styles, it's a lot of love taking place. You know, and we see it in politics, we see it on the way people deal in their everyday life. And I think this is one of the things I miss, you know, because people really connect. And sometimes it's not the same in different places when you become a bit suspicious of others, you know, when you don't know where they're coming from.
So would you say Honduras is like a high context culture?
It is. It is. You know, it's very interesting that being a such a small country with not much information globally, you know, everyone you talk to who has been to Honduras, they will tell you people is just lovely. You know, and that takes so much out of the context of poverty and probably lack of opportunities and not so developed political frame, you know, and the love Honduran people has, I think it comes of the origins. Most of the people,
the resilience from the origins, right?
Yeah, and we have several indigenous groups. We have a lot of mixed communities taking place there, but everybody will have something to do with any of those groups. You know, it's like in your heritage. And this is actually what makes it so positive and powerful, because at the moment you understand that I might have an African ancestor, I have an indigenous ancestor, I have a Spanish ancestor. Of course, the way you deal in everyday life will tell you there is something about it, not conscious, but subconscious, that connect you with different groups of the community. Usually clashes start to take place at the economical level, Tati.
Oh,
No, because usually discrimination and separation will be more related to economical facts.
really? Okay.
Yeah, more than social, because we have not the stratus. We don't have this social
The casta or
casta. Exactly,
Mhm.
that doesn't really exist because you will find everybody came from very humble beginnings. Some of them as immigrants, some of them as farmers, people from the commerce area, and then they started to develop into a more comfortable economical position. So it's not that there is aristocracy, you
So
know?
when you say, just to clarify my understanding, so when you say there is a discrimination that is more business related, do you mean like people become richer because of economical factors, or and this is how so you're more successful and you discriminate the less successful. That's the
It can be that part, or is also that at the when we talk about the new rich, for example,
Oh, okay.
that is very common in Latin America. Everybody in Latin America generally comes from a very humble beginning. And then due to different circumstances, opportunities at the educational level or financial level, or because you travel abroad, and then your status and your condition change. And this is when you start to find people that start to see with less value people who comes from their same beginnings.
I see.
And
That's interesting because for example, that happens also, for example, in Brazil, where I come from. So it's interesting that, as you said, the discrimination is not social; it's more economical. Yeah, makes very much sense. Okay.
Yeah, and also at the moment that you start to understand that fear is actually what triggers discrimination, Tati, because people say, okay, I worked so hard to be here, and then they start to remember where they're coming from. And this is when we're talking about people who has not done their homework to be compassionate and to understand
To
how you
improve
can
themselves.
exactly to be more inclusive, how you can do transitions from one economical situation to the next. They start to be so fearful that when they see somebody that doesn't have any money, they think they're going to take that money away from them. And this is why you find out that most of Latin American and also Honduran people, when they have some money, the first thing they do is to fence their properties. You see? Defense, and big walls and big murs, in order to avoid people to see what they are building up or in which condition they are. And also separating themselves from the people with less economical opportunities.
Yeah, makes sense. And that, as you said, it happens in many different countries in Latin America.
Yeah.
And when you you come from a place with this general setting, as you said, people are they come from humble origins, but they were very resilient. They're very loving, etc. So you were born in this environment, and then you had the opportunity to live in different places, in many different places. You expatriated to many different places. So tell us, what was your biggest challenge or shock living living abroad?
Tati, but before I tell you what has been my biggest challenge living abroad, I tell you my biggest challenge living in Honduras.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Because as I told you, 10% of the population is Garifuna. So I was always the only Black girl in all my educational settings, and even my parents.
Really?
Yes. So when my parents, I think all my capacity of adapting to new environments and to understand how valuable my contributions to other communities are comes from my parents and from my grandparents. My grandparents from both sides were very much into community settings and also leadership. My grandfather from my father's side, he was a priest. from a Protestant church. And my grandmother, she was a healer, and she was very oriented into agriculture. So she was leading with the women and the community, and they were always teaching. And then my grandfather from my mother's side, he was a telegraphist, and he was a photographer, and he was a musician. And my grandmother, because they had a big family, there were 8 children, she was looking after the kids at home. So then you can see there is a formal, non-formal education with a lot of connection with other people, and actually considering the well-being of a community, you know, in a bigger scale than your own nuclear group. So my parents on the other side come from that setting. My father is a science teacher and a lawyer, and my mother is a mathematician. So both of them were always thinking about art, culture, spirituality, and education as a triangle to keep us going. And they say, everything you learn on the weekends when you go to the ballet classes, to the music classes, to art classes, the Boy Scouts, whatever, you need to come and teach to your neighbors. So that was
interesting.
Our childhood. We were like Saturdays and Sundays, because they were teachers and we were 5 kids. They say the easy ways to keep us focused and oriented into a constructive playing was through our own skills transference. It's like the exchange of knowledge. And this is the moment, Tati, that I'm so honored and so humbled to listen to some of our neighbors. They will have never had the opportunity to know about this kind of artistic or educational profile without us doing that. And they say, you know, we learned about ballet, and we learned about music or classical music, and we learned about collective work because this specific way of playing. So we learned playing. And then again, we were always the only Black family in the neighborhoods. We were the only Black kids in the neighborhoods. But my parents opened the path for us to be safe in an environment that was different.
And connect, right? And connect.
Yeah, they as educators, it's not about race, it's about capacities. And they say, we do this. We are the only Black teachers in this specific environment, and they were successful. They were respected. And they say, you need to also respect the people that doesn't have opportunities as you do, and work
and bring value and bring value.
And work together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, learn from them, and they will learn from you.
Yeah. So that's beautiful.
When I went abroad for the first time with the exchange organization to USA, I originally was intending to go to Europe because I love the architecture. My sister went to Sweden with AFS, and I wanted probably to follow her, but my cousin who went before her, he went to the US, but I didn't speak any English that day. And then when the people from the selecting team came, they say, Wanny, I'm sorry, we have found out that the best placement for you will be in the United States. That was a big disappointment for me. Because I was really looking forward to go to any place in Europe. And they said, no. And I said, fine, okay. I did my reconciliation with the idea. And this is the moment that I don't regret it. And I thanks all of them, because I was hosted by a beautiful family. My host mother is from Coventry, England. She was a widow of a Jamaican British engineer, and she has 2 daughters, Joanne, who is an artist, and Zoe, who is in business. But very different. One is very white, like my host mom, and the other one is more color, like the father. And living in the United States, in the Midwest, in Rockford, Illinois. So it was a very interesting combination, because, you know, the Midwest is also very segregated, you know, in a systematic way. But then you understand that sometimes it's safety. Sometimes people want to remain in the group that is similar, in order to protect what you have. you know, and then I was coming from an expat family in the US, but my sisters were also very resilient and they were very adapted into the US. So for me, looking at them and looking to my host mom, who was very hardworking woman, a widow, and going to a high school, they had a lot of people from so different backgrounds. I decided to join all those different teams because this is what I came from. I was coming from a community where I was doing
A diversity.
with so many people doing music, doing arts, doing sports, doing community service, doing contributions into the church and so on. So this is exactly what I replicated in my exchange year. So I had friends from so many places, many countries, of course. I was homesick at the beginning because I miss the comfort of your people, the ones speak your own language. And in the States I was placed, nobody spoke Spanish. I found a friend from Mexico who I saw once in a while, and a friend from Brazil and a friend from Spain that we hang around a bit. But the reality was that I have to stick to my host family in order to learn the language. And that was a challenge. And then after my exchange year, I came back to Honduras to study. I finished my high school. I was doing literature and also foreign languages. And at the same time, I was called by a travel agency because I spoke a bit of French, English, and Spanish. And they trained me as a tour operator. So I was 18 years old, and I started working with 18 years old as a travel operator and tour travel agent. And that also opened my whole perception of life, because you're in a working environment. You know, you have to take responsibility of a portfolio of very important people with 18 years old, you know. And at that time we were doing tickets with the books. So you have to calculate the miles for the people to travel abroad. That was a big responsibility, because if you have a mistake, the person with the ticket will have a mistake as well. You know, so it was not like today that they do it on the computer. You needed to calculate it. Every week we got new books from the airlines. And then the tickets, if you calculated a wrong mile, they didn't expire on the time the person traveled. It
could get messy. It could get messy.
And I worked in the travel business for 2.5 years. And then they called me from AFS organization to apply for the hosting coordinator position. And I was 20 years old. Like I told you, I started with 18, 19. I was 20 years and a half. And I compete with a doctor, with a journalist, and people who were older and seniors than me. But I got the position. I was hired from an international contract. AFS headquarters were in New York. So I have a very big salary, and I have a very important position dealing with the foreign students coming to Honduras. And the work consisted in doing the selection of the participants, the selections of the host families, the selections of the schools, and then the placements. I needed to do a very conscious work of personalities and environments and needs in order for those placements to be successful, you know, and also the schools and the communities they were supposed to be located, because we have 18 departments in the country. We were working in 10 departments in the countries. So I was hosting, when I started, students from 15 countries around the world. And, you know, coming also from so many different backgrounds and different environments. So I don't know, I think it's something that is in myself from childhood, like I told you, coming from this diverse environment and actually learning how to sort these kind of relations and make it work. So doing placements for me was a piece of cake, Tati. Honestly.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe your, you know, where you came from and being habituated with the diversity made you more curious and made you more open-minded, right?
Yeah, and probably also created a little bit of intense observation possibilities.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
But
yeah,
you need to really observe, because if you get a participant who comes from a rural community, and then suddenly you place this student in a metropolis without understanding his capacity to deal with the metropolis needs, and with a family who comes from a very open environment, you need to calculate, you know, that the person who comes from a small setting can go to a middle-sized setting. So the adjustment can be more
acceptable.
assertive.
It's not like a big thing. Yeah.
Exactly. It has to be
A big
assertive.
step.
Exactly. And I worked as a hosting coordinator for 10 years. And at the same time, I was the travel coordinator. I was also working with the adults program coordination. So where I took the program with 60 students, and when I left 10 years later, we were hosting 300 to 400 students a year from different programs like semester, summer, students coming in the north area that is from January to January, students coming in the south that is from July to July. And it was a great opportunity to see how all these kids has changed and how they are now, and they still in my line of communications. They're successful business people, educators, artists. I know about the kids, I know about their partners, and it's great to see them as a big family, you know, after so many years. Because
and how much they grew, right? How much, and a bunch of places that they might have gone, you know, around the world, maybe.
No, it's exactly like that. You know, they're also citizens of the world. So when I talk about the power of intercultural learning experiences from early age, is a change point, you know, forever. Because that person will see life in a different dimension. You know, and I think sometimes people get into that environment a bit late. Not that it's not the right time, it's always the right time. But when your brain is not so flexible,
it's more difficult to adapt.
It is a little bit more challenging. I think
it's challenging. Challenging is a better word.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not about talking about the negativity of the experience, because everything in life have a negative and a positive. It's more about talking about how can you handle it. It's about management, you know, of the circumstances. And when you ask me about how I deal with the opportunity of living abroad in so many different cultures with so many different stories, because after Honduras, my husband decided that we moved to the international cooperation. He was coming from the UN system, but he was working mainly in the country, in Honduras. So he's Austrian, but he was dealing with government institutions, and I was the one traveling overseas with my job. But then he said, let's go for the international cooperation. And I say, fine. So after I was established hosting coordinator in an organization that I knew very well, and it was like the perfect job for me, Tati. That was the perfect, you know, it could not get better than that. And I said, oh, okay. So I decided to take the challenge. And I say, fine. So when we moved the first time to Zimbabwe in 1997, Africa, of course, I come from an Afro history, but I have never been in Africa. I didn't know anything about their story. And then I was not the hosting coordinator, because sometimes when you are in an environment that you are working for so long, you become the person you represent with your job or your activities. And the moment you move to a new environment, you need to understand that all that is gone. So I sat there and I said, okay, it's true. I have always been singing, and I was singing professionally, but I never considered myself to be a singer, because I was not doing it as a job. I was doing it because I love to sing, even though they pay me properly, Tati. But I always gave my share to the musicians and so on, because like I told you, I have a proper international wage program, a payment. You know, and then, okay, coming to Zimbabwe, and I say, okay, this is the time. Okay, let me take my career as a singer as a flag, you know, to start connecting with people, because I always understood that art is the biggest door to connect. Even working with the intercultural exchange programs, or in my exchange year, I always use art, the singing and the conversation about culture to
connect
and to make it easier.
make friends.
Yeah, because people doesn't get suspicious when you usually connect words. You know, everybody loves
Ah,
music,
that's a good
everybody
tip.
loves art, you know, everybody loves dancing, you know. So at the moment that you start to really take that weapon, you know, as the biggest asset, everything start to fall into place. So and I say, fine, let me start. But again, I didn't knew any musicians. I didn't knew anybody. And then I say, okay, let me try to replicate the system of my previous job, the scheme, to start applying it into the new community. Because even in Honduras, at the moment before I left, I created a women's organization that is 25 years this year. I founded that organization with my sisters and a couple of friends because women were not represented properly, and the story of women was not told. So what I did is I created the same system of AFS for the women organization I created, with a board, with volunteers, very small staff, donations for the organization, and it's been working. It's been changing. It's been transforming according to the needs. But it has, again, mapping, you know, understanding of the population that you would like to target, you know, content and volunteer work. You know, those four elements will not fail. Because when you move to, I say, I need to understand that in Zimbabwe, I don't know anybody. I am nobody here, because every time you go to a new country, you are zero.
Start from scratch, yeah.
No, it's to really understand you are zero, because you don't belong to that system. So when you move to a new society, it's about integration to a new system. And when you go to the new system, you say, okay, I need to connect to the school system, to the volunteer system, the NGOs who are moving around, the banking system, you know, and then how all those different elements can be integrated. So I went to the music school and I said, if I want musicians, I need to go to the music school. So I didn't went to ask for the musician, I went to learn, because music and art is very specific to each society.
Yeah,
So I say, let me go and learn about traditional music in Zimbabwe. So I went to the Ethnomusicology Trust as a student to learn about the system and the people, to connect. And I met a lot of people. Then in that school, I found my first project. You know, then the same time that I was going to the music school, I went to do a research, because in those days, there was no internet or very few computer connections. So with the book, the telephone book, you know, in the newspaper, you have to check the opportunities. And I went to American Black Women's Organization. I went to the Zimbabwe Women Network. I went to the Zimbabwe Women Writers, and I joined all those groups. When I joined the Zimbabwe Women Writers, they were looking for a coordinator as a volunteer for a project that is called Women in Arts in Southern Africa. So we were collecting stories of women in Southern Africa from all different backgrounds, but positive stories. And we make a calendar. So every year we have to choose 12 Southern African women and share their stories, successful stories. So that was, besides doing my music school, I was doing the women's. I was also joining all these fraternities of women. And that way I connected to musicians who were also attuned with my beliefs, people who was interested in community and who were interested in art, but no commercial, because commercial came later, because when you have to entertain and make money, you need to get commercial. You know, but if you like to educate and transform, you have to go organic.
True, yeah, that's true, yeah.
You know? So that was a beautiful opportunity to be part of two other programs. There was music in the rural areas, where we were including Western syllables, like reading music on the scale, talking about stretching and yoga when they're doing traditional dance, learning the other side of the artistic language, because it's the Western and it's the traditional. So we have this team of musicians, who all of us came from the Western, and we learned from the kids and the teachers from the traditionals, and we created a fusion. And it was so amazing, Tati, because musical intuition is always there, but the way we apply change. So the professors gave us more opportunities to be, again, more compassionate. You know, because when you come from an academic education, yeah, it's very strict. You know, and it's so, you become always so competitive. Competitive with yourself and competitive with others.
With others. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this one was more collaborative, like it was integrated.
Mm-hmm. Integrated. And as you can see, everything, for me, understanding that collaborations from childhood, because that's what my parents did, Tati. They teach us, you know, that collaboration was the key. Because we're not islands, you know, and at the moment you keep moving to a new society, always keep track of what the locals do, what other bubbles do, because it's true, it's very important to have the Latin American group and to have the Asian group and to have the Greek community, because every country I go, I'm usually linked to most of them. I have Greek friends, I have Spanish friends, I have Afro community friends, I have the diplomatic ladies, I have the thing is, the more.
But if you don't go outside the box, you don't learn, right? You don't.
Exactly. And sometimes what we tend to do is to look at homogenic setting. We say, okay, I'm in Latin America, let me go and look for all the Latin American ladies. And then you never move from the Latin American group. You know, so, and it's good. Stay there and be loyal to your Latin American group, but try to create
also
dynamics. That create dynamics where you have the opportunity to meet the other different groups of women, you know, they are in the surroundings. And that is enriching, and it's also easier, you know, then for you to understand what is going on in the local community.
I'm fascinated. So basically from your story, what it sounds like we could, you know, summarize it, and as a recommendation would be, you know, if you go to a new country, what you could do is integrate by, you know, flexing yourself into and trying to immerse yourself in that culture somehow, in something that you know, interests you, either in arts or, you know, sport, whatever, but immerse yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes it's besides immersing yourself into that society, that is organically finding things that you love to do with the local people, because sometimes immersion can be a bit artificial, you know. So it's about finding yourself with the group of people that is might like it, you know, that is like you. Because sometimes you don't have to do it on your own, because it's a very lonely and difficult way to start getting accepted in different groups, you know? And it's like, first, get to know your own in the new environment, yeah? After you are comfortable knowing the people from your same background, same story in the new environment, start investigating what other groups are doing related to your interests.
Mm-hmm.
It has always to be like, if you like tennis, or if you like swimming, or if you like
book reading,
or the book reading, you know, it's like, because it's easier and it's comfortable to do something that is familiar, because your brain and your whole system is in a better disposition. Because usually we go looking for, let me go learn to become a concerto pianist, you know, it's like, do realistic things, you know, that of course
Yes, yes.
you can become a concerto pianist, but think
Go
about all
step
the
by
levels.
step. Yeah.
Yeah, think about the levels of stress being in a new environment and learning to play the piano at that level, you know. So fine, do it, but later. Let's start first meeting people who is concerto pianists, and where do they perform, who they are. You know, it's like getting to know the people who are experts, and everything you are good is the key, because that is going to lead you to success, because they already found the formula for success. If you start hanging around with people who is mediocre and they don't really know what's going on, you're calling for troubles, because you're gonna get negativity, you're gonna get
Naysayers.
yeah,
Or,
exactly. So it's about always read, find out. It's now so easy on internet. Check the list of people who is doing things that you like and who are the best, and try to go there, because we always have to reach for the best. If we want to become better, we always have to look for the best. And then met that persons, their circles. If you find out that they don't suit you, go to the next one, because sometimes success, you cannot measure it with skills and capacities. I always say compassion is the first one. You need to find people who really cares about others, because that people really cares about itself. Yeah, and I think that makes life a little bit more like meaningful, and also more enjoyable, and then also give you the opportunity to feel embraced. Yeah. And the same, I told you, the same formula I was sharing with you, I applied later when I moved to Colombia, because even being Latin American, Colombia is so different than Central America. They have a stratus over there, you know, like we were talking caste. I moved to Cali the first time, you know, there was a lot of issue with the narco-terrorism in the city. Cali is very close to my heart. My kids started to really connect with Spanish again, even so they speak very good Spanish, because I always spoke Spanish to them. And the father only spoke German. When they went to Colombia, they spoke Spanish. The youngest one was a baby, so she learned how to speak Spanish in Colombia. And listen, Tati, for me it was so incredible that when we went to the high school where my son was going to be taking classes, they gave you a formulary where they ask you about your parents, your grandparents, and if you have memory of what your great-grandparents were doing. He was saying, why is this? From my hobbies and who they were and what do they do, blah, blah, blah. The same for my husband and for my side. Then we find out that because of the narco-terrorism situation in Cali, they were trying to clear the history of the people they accepted on the school. It was like make sure that they didn't come from a narcos background.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah, you know. So
and if they did, what would they do?
No, they will not accept you. That was the preliminary formulary to be accepted in certain schools, and that was. Then we learned from the people from Cali that happened because of a lot of new rich in Cali were coming from the narcos background, and we're talking about Colombia being very careful of their aristocratic pedigree.
That's very interesting.
It was not about having the money. It was about having the right background.
Yeah, I see.
So, and that was, in a way, it's sad, Tati, because
because it's a sort of a discrimination in a way, right?
Discrimination, you know. And then what happened in Cali is that the narcos, they started to create their own bubbles at the high level. They created their own clubs. They created their own malls. They created the same status to compete with the aristocratics, you know, because they were not accepted by them. You know, in in a way, it's a bit, and it was interesting because every time I met people in Cali, I say, hi, how are you? And I noticed that people never ask you, what do you do? And I say, okay, that's okay, fine. You know, you met people and you hang around, but they never ask you anything. So we lived in Cali for a year, then we moved to Bogota for 4 years. And in Bogota was so different because people always ask you, what do you do? Where do you live? First, where do you live? Because if you live in a strato 5, 4, or 6, 5, 4, you come from a good people because you're rich.
Oh.
So the people first connected, find it, and it's again, it's not that it's wrong.
But they want to know what they stand, right?
That system, and like I think we've been discussing this from the beginning. You know, people always want to feel safe. Connections and communication is always related to safety. You know, but we need to be aware how to apply that safety and that discrimination or that separation and make it more inclusive, you know, and more effective. So I was always, okay, no, I live, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, fine. So I will always wonder, you know, because we live in that strata with these people and so on. I never had the opportunity to see how do they deal with person who came from a different stratus.
Oh.
What I have done in my job, because of my position, I always have the opportunity to be in a privileged situation. I have created like a safe path to skillful and talented people to join those sectors because I'm an artist. If they hire me, they have to hire me with my band and with my artists, of my collective.
See. Okay.
You know, and my painters and my designers and then they cannot ask because they say they come with Wanny. So you become the safe passage for people who later on join that sector. You know, it's like it's a curatory. It's a system of curatory. And this is what I have been doing since the moment I founded Women's in Arts in Honduras. You know, I was working with the elite and also the ground people. I was working in this scale, up and down always, but always being a privilege to belong to the top, but not using to be to the top to exclude, but to include.
To help out and to help others, right? That wouldn't maybe have the same opportunity, but that are really willing, are really wanting to improve and become better. And so that's great.
And it's interesting because sometimes it's not really helping. It's more like, for me, they have to really possess skills and talents that will prove, because I'm the one who is endorsing people. I endorse, and I will not endorse somebody that I know is going to be a problem, because that affects my reputation.
Absolutely.
And that affects my possibility to continue doing this job. You know, so I am very careful, you know, because I really do the casting. I met the people, I work with them, I understand how they live and how they think. And then when I see that, you know, that their values will be of a contribution to other collectives and to other communities, that's the moment that I do the endorsement. And I say, okay, let's go, join me, let's participate in these activities, let's, if somebody from a X group call me and I say, fine, please take this person. They usually call me, Tatyana, and I have made myself very accessible and also in a way needed. So that people say, you know, we know Wanny that she's doing these performances for charities and she belongs from this data. And then when they call me, and not necessarily they will have me, but they will have people from my database that is being curated. And I will tell them, guys, I cannot do it, but I will recommend you this and this person. And definitely I'll be there, you know, supporting you a little bit, because usually I'm doing so many countries and so many places at the same time that I cannot be everywhere.
Yes, but you cannot clone yourself.
But keep using that capacity, you know, to construct and to be of use, you know, and because this is what we always looking for, Tati, and especially in corporate world, you know, in the private sector, we're always looking for the best, you know, to make our brand better. Yeah, and I think at the moment that we really start to understand those little elements, you know, about excellence and about compassion, things really fall into place. You know, and the same happened in India. After Colombia, we moved to India. After India, we moved back to Panama. After Panama, we moved to Kenya. And now we're in Thailand. In telling you that living between 3.5 to 5 years in all those societies, applying the same formula. First, mapping. And mapping means look at the big scenario, everything. Family orientation, skills, interests, opportunities. That's your mapping. And then try to Googling, checking address, go to the place. If you like those things, go to the concerts, go to the cinema, go to the gym, go to the sport places, and don't go as an observer, go as a person who will like to join that group.
To really experience, right?
Yeah, go and live it, you know, and then that way you're going to start, people like you will show up and they will say, oh my God, where are you coming from? What are you doing? What, can you join us? Can we celebrate together, you know? But first, do it in a safe way. Like I told you, sometimes people feel so disoriented that they want to start looking so far away. Start at home, you know? PTA group with your kids, neighbors, teams in the area, your doctor's clinic, you know, things that you do in regular basis, tiny steps like a baby. Yeah.
So map is first,
mapping
is connect, like based
exactly. Collaboration.
So map, connect with based on interest. What else?
And after that, you have integration.
Integration. That's a good formula. I like it.
And at the moment that you have the integration, then you have exposure.
And everything goes from there, right? Everything goes from there. Things starts to unfold, right?
Mapping, collaboration, integration, exposure. Because the more groups you join, it's a you multiplicate the effects of people knowing you and the things you are bringing to the table. So if you are in 7-10 different groups of people doing things at church, with the kids, with your neighbors, with the sports, with the art, with whatever, and then they say, oh yes, you know, do you know Tati? Yes, I know her. You start to find out that everybody knows you because you belong everywhere.
That's true. That's very true. That's true. And you have to start small, as you said. You have to start, you know, small and you start to grow.
And this is also a physical effect. That is like you throw a stone in the water, a small one, and it goes like
a ripple effect.
Yeah, and then you throw a medium size, and then you throw bigger size, and it doesn't have to do anything, of course. Race and language and appearance, many things count, but they're not definite, because at the moment you belong to a group, people will accept you, not for what you have, for the way you look, is because how you connect,
who you are, right? Your heart also, right?
Connection, no? And sometimes when we talk to the heart and in the emotions, people becomes a bit skeptical because you cannot see it. It's more like, is the lady is going to the church every Sunday, and then you come and you join the reading with the kids. They're not gonna say, oh, the Black lady who is in the church. They're going to say, the lady who sits with the kids and sing with the kids.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
And then I'm telling you, because that's the way I work, because I've been doing this from childhood. You know, my neighbors, they were not Afro-descendants. We were the only Black ones. They didn't say, the Black girl from the neighborhood. They say, the girl who is teaching me how to sing, or the girl who is teaching me how to play chess.
So you changed your perspective as well. You changed the way they frame you, right? The way they see you.
And this is what my parents did as educators, because when you work from a perspective of education, education who is successful is that one that is inclusive. And when you're teaching, it's like, if I'm Black, I'm not going to only teach the Black kids. If I have a group of people who come from so different backgrounds, I'm gonna teach all of them. Doesn't matter how they look, how they are, because my task and my target is to make these students successful.
Learn something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that specific teaching area.
And since this is a good segue, so to my next question. So what would you say? So you work with a lot of global leaders, right? And you even work with a global leader training, program. Right?
Yes.
Program, yeah. So what would you say? Global leaders need to learn in terms of cross-cultural training to be successful in this, digital era, in this new era that we are in?
Yeah, I think first is to come down the clouds, come down from the clouds, because that's the first thing. Is usually when we use terms like global or leader, it becomes big,
arrogant.
Big. Yeah, not necessarily arrogant, but it becomes big into your sense. It's true. It's understanding the globality. It means all. And leadership means opportunities and the right time. Because if you are having the right time and the skills, the opportunities really match. Yeah, and sometimes as leaders, we only think on going forward without understanding that going forward has so many different shades, and also timing, and preparation, and it's a ongoing process. It's going on every second, every minute, every day, every week, and we never reach. And the problem is that when someone tell you a leader, it's like you reach something. We have to understand that we have not reached or achieved anything yet. We need to always keep that in mind. Searching, learning, always connecting with the people who is better than you, and learn,
and learn from them and grow, because that's how you grow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's that way. And of course, there are some certain formulas or certain spaces, but we're so unique, Tati, that every time we sit for coaching or for assessment, you need to see that person from a holistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the moment, because we met almost a month ago. And it's so different now, our communication, from when we met the first time. And it's going to be so different when we talk again later on. And that happens even with the loved ones, with your partner, with your kids, with your neighbors. They might be having a bad day, and whatever you tell them is not gonna work. They might have the best of the days, and everything you tell them is going to be perfect.
Everything will land that day. Everything will land.
or you can be having, I don't know, such a big ego, that whatever that is around you, it doesn't exist, because it's like having an eclipse. It's like the sun with a eclipse. And that changed. Probably even that person who has such a big ego is because something is going on in her life. And at the end of the day, behavior, connections, and sense of belonging are the ones who are actually guiding us, believe it or not. And I think for me, it's about respecting my feelings, understanding where I am today, preparation, you know, because the more prepared you are, the better you're going to deliver. And usually people go to meetings or to activities or to their job without preparation because they have not managed to structure the mind, and everything is a chaos. And then they feel more and more confused, and things start
Frustrated.
to go, it gets worse and worse. And it's about first connecting with your own person, cleaning the past of your own self, starting to understand how you react to different situations and opportunities or failure, because, you know, that's for me one of the biggest points when I talk to people. We need to understand that sometimes we have to fail and we're gonna be rejected. And we don't like
And
to
that's
be
okay,
rejected.
right? That's part of the learning path, right?
And we need to process that, and we need to do a review, because me, I'm not a good loser, Tati, not at all. And I don't take a no for an answer. That's the way I am. But I have learned to take adversity as a constructive tool. You know, in somebody say, no, I know I'm gonna be frustrated, but I'm gonna take that frustration from the positive. Learn to take all the situations that are negative into transformation, you know, that will lead you to move forward. Because we're always gonna find that stone on the way, and then we get angry because it's there on the middle of the way. And usually we forget that all those difficulties and all that people that makes our lives so miserable are giving us the opportunity to be better and to do greater things. And we do it.
And do you believe that there is a purpose to everything? Do you believe in this idea that there is a purpose to everything that happens to us?
Yes, I really do believe that each human being, and I say because we are miracles, and again, we always forget.
I believe that too, yeah.
Only when we are little babies, and for example, now that I have a granddaughter, that she's 7 months old, when you find somebody that comes from your same lineage, and then you have a son or somebody who's innocent, just was nothing, it didn't exist, it was in the belly of somebody, you know, and then suddenly
they're
here
there.
we are now grown ups, and we also were like that. We also forget that we also miracles. We all started from a combination of two humans, you know, and then became one. And I think every person is a miracle, and each one of us, we have a cosmic mission. I really do believe in that. But sometimes we're not putting attention, we're not listening, because we get distracted with what other people is doing, and what it actually, we get distracted with the mirror of other people instead of starting to check
look
more
at ourselves. Yeah.
and we have to do that later in life, because every stage of our growing experience is taking us there. And this is why we always need to come back to our childhood.
I'm having goosebumps. Oh my goodness. Continue. Go on. I'm having goosebumps.
Yeah, when you start to do your journey into your childhood, when you were a baby, trying to understand what happened to your parents, what happened to your great parents, what happened to your siblings, that's what actually built you up. And then you erase it, you start growing, because you start with the family. Then when you are 11, 12 to 18, 20, you move to the tribe, because this is the moment you need to prove that you can do things on your own. And then this is when you realize, and you hate your parents and you hate everybody. That anyone who knows you from you were a baby or a child.
That's it.
You hate they don't want to be near you. But when you're 21, and usually between 25 to 35, this is when they start getting a little bit more closer, and they say, oh, I remember my parent told me
They
this.
start making questions about heritage and interest, right?
They actually not making questions, Tati. What we did at that time is to acknowledge. We start to say, but talking to friends, they say, no, but you know, my mother used to do this, and my father used to do that, and my grandparents. And it's like being proud of your heritage. But when you are between 40 and on, this is when the heritage becomes grounded, you know. And this is why when you say a professional life start ending when you are 45, because you feel that you already achieved not success in your job, but you already feel that you belong to a bigger scenario. And this is when the spiritual connection really start moving in you, and you start to say, what is this? Isn't it? It's different. Yeah. And of course, then, you know, we get ready to go to another dimension. And I think the greatest things we can do when we are we're alive is to wake up every day and think this is going to be the last day and do the best out of it. And
Absolutely.
for me, yeah, and for me, it's a motto to say, live a life a day.
And be present, right? Be
present. No, because go to sleep, because, you know, sleeping is a temporary death. That's the sleeping is that's actually what sleeping is. You go to sleep, you're dead. Some people never come back from there. You know, and I think we have to be appreciated every morning when we wake up, that we can recognize things, that we can hear things, that we can smell things, and to go again, wake up, kiss your kids, embrace your husband, embrace yourself, you know, because this is the first thing you need to do, to say, oh, thank you, I'm fine, you know, and celebrate life, because everything else is only an accessory. Everything else is an accessory. We came to this world naked and we live naked. Sometimes they dress us up, you know, and we become from nothing something, and then we become nothing again.
I love it. So we have to enjoy, you know, the moment that we're here, the brief moment, we have to enjoy and appreciate. And I hear you. I totally agree. So we're almost at the end of our show. So are you ready for the hand gestures?
Yes, definitely.
So let me think about one gesture. So for example, in Brazil, if you want, you know, you are talking about someone and you make this gesture, it means that that person might be arrogant, or you know, or be full of themselves, right? So if I'm saying, oh, that person, this gesture might mean this is what you are going to encounter when you talk to that person. So what could be a hand gesture from any place that you have lived, or even from Honduras? What is a hand gesture that comes to your mind?
Okay, the first one is this one. When the people do like this in Honduras, it means that you don't like to share. You know, it's like, how you call this person who don't like to give anything? It's like you give from here up, not from here
down. So if you do like this means that the person is like stingy. That's
exactly. So when they do, and you don't need, if they know, they just will tell you. But it's
that's so interesting. We have this gesture in Brazil too, but it means something else.
What it means in Brazil?
It means it means that person is envious of you.
Okay, but envy is also related to being stingy, because they want what you have.
Yeah, that's maybe how it's connected. Okay, yeah.
That you can share from here to up, but it's like you're not generous.
I see.
You know, so it's
That's
no
an interesting
generosity. Yeah?
gesture.
And in Thailand, we use a lot like this. There is also, they say there is a Korean symbol.
Korean gesture. What does it mean?
This means little heart.
And
And
it means what? The little heart means good thing or a bad thing?
It's sending you love with my, like, sending love.
Love.
And those are little hearts. It's like,
and you do this gesture in what context? Like, oh, I love you, or I love.
If you want to, when you take a photo and you like to tell people I love you.
Ah, okay. So I should have started the show saying like this to you. Hi, Wanny. Hi, Wanny.
And then, of course, people who see me doing like this in Honduras say, no, but this means money.
Money, yes, in Brazil it's money too, okay.
I say, no, you don't move the finger. You just make the little hearts. You keep them fixed.
That's awesome. I loved it. I loved it.
Okay.
So let's end our show with our card reading, okay? So I'm going to share my screen with you. You are going to read the card out loud and then tell me anything that comes to your mind, okay? So let me share the screen. Just
happiness emerge from my heart and also swirls all around me. Beautiful. You know, it's
and read what's on top too.
I decide what to feel. I am in control of my life, and it's happiness. Yeah, you know, and I think the best way I can actually share my thoughts about this card is I have a mantra that an affirmation that I always use with my partners and my associates and the different projects I support. And it starts giving your hands up and saying, I am.
I am.
Okay, going to your heart and saying, I love myself.
I love myself.
And then from here, you come in saying, I am powerful.
I am powerful. I love it.
I can give.
I am. So let's, it continues. It continues.
It continues. So, and after we say, I am powerful, you go to your heart and you say, I can give.
I can give.
Yes. And then you
I can give.
I can receive.
I can receive.
And then you end up with a big heart and you say, I can change.
Oh my goodness. I love this.
So we're going to do it from the top and we say, I am.
I am.
I love myself.
I love myself.
I am powerful.
I'm powerful.
I can give.
I can give.
I can receive.
I can receive.
And I can change.
And I can change. I love it. Wow, I'm having goosebumps again. Oh my goodness, I love this.
And it's an affirmation that we need to do every day to remind us that we come from a greater source, that we're unique, and that we sometimes might feel a little bit empty, or sometimes we are going to feel a little bit overwhelmed, but we need to regulate. And doing this exercise help us to understand,
Center.
Yes, that we can make it. We can make it happen. And the most difficult thing is to understand that we can change, because we like to be in a comfort zone. And when we say, I am, whatever you want will manifest. And this is really close to the card you gave me. You know, was so attuned.
And, you know, I like it because, you know, I can change also implies that you are consciously wanting to change something, because sometimes we change also without even realizing that, and it could be not a good change, right? But when we're intentionally wanting to change something to benefit the others and the world, it's so much powerful, right? It's so
yes. And you say it, Tati, when we say I am, it's like, look at the line. I am, and you come back in a triangle. I love myself. 3 elements get connected. I am powerful. The fist 10 fingers. 10 fingers come from your heart to understand I have to be generous. I can give. And then I need to be humble enough to receive
as well.
You know, and to be powerful, humble, you know, and to be acknowledge who we are. Then change will come.
Change intentionally. Yes, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. I really loved it. Thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely amazing. And I am so grateful for this card, because I'm not sure if you would share such a beautiful thing without, you know, if you didn't see the card. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And it's interesting that, like you mentioned to me before we started the interview, it's like, I'm going to give you a card. I know you always do it. And it's this mantra, I use it in certain interviews. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. And I think without that card, I would have not shared this one with you today, you know, because we have been talking about the same in different
aspects. Yeah.
But I think it's the perfect way to do the closure.
I absolutely loved it. The best closure I could imagine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tati.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for, you know, your openness, for sharing everything that, you know, the teachings, talking about your history and your heritage. I really think this is important for people to, you know, understand how different people live around the world, and, you know, and understand that what they're going through and what they want to go through is okay, is natural. And as you said, you know, it's part of our excellence. We want to improve, we want to connect to better people and grow. So thank you so much for everything. I really loved, you know, talking to you and all the gems that you shared. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to you.
Tati, blessings. Keep shining, and sending you a lot of musical kisses. This moment from Vienna.
Thank you. Hey, I want to tell you one more thing. You are a global leader. The question is, do you have all the skills that you need to succeed? I'd love to help. I save my very best tips for my subscribers. Subscribe for free at coachingexpatriates.com. I know your inbox is sacred, so I promise I will send you emails that you will love. Wow, that was so insightful. I really enjoy these talks, and I hope you do too. As always, I will leave links to everything we talked about in the show in the description below. And if you like this video, please give us a like so that other people can find us, and make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so that you can be notified when other videos comes up. Thank you so much for watching.